If you woke up this morning with no desire to, if your body feels as though it is anchored to the mattress, if your mind protests every attempt at movement, do not blame yourself. This is not weakness. This is not laziness. It is not a moral failing. It is a signal, a message from the part of you that runs deeper than thought, deeper than habit, deeper than the everyday urge to produce and perform. Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, spent a lifetime exploring these quiet depths of the human mind. He believed that the unconscious is not a repository of errors, but a vital, intelligent realm, a part of the self that communicates in symbols, images, and subtle nudges. The heaviness you feel, the desire to retreat, the inability to force yourself into action. This is the unconscious speaking. It is your soul whispering, "Stop. Listen. Something within me needs attention." We live in a society that equates motion with virtue and stillness with failure. You have been taught from an early age that productivity is moral, that rest is indulgent, and that to lie down when there is work to do is shameful. Yet Jung observed a different truth. The unconscious mind does not rest in futility, and neither does your soul. Just as the forest does not stop growing in winter, even when all seems dormant, your inner life is active in ways you cannot yet perceive. Beneath the surface, transformation is quietly taking place. Consider the nature of this transformation. Jung described the unconscious as a kind of psychic ecosystem, a complex network that must be allowed cycles of activity and rest. Just as a river carves its path over years, quietly shaping the land, the unconscious shapes you, slowly and silently, even when the conscious mind believes nothing is happening. That sense of inertia you feel, the stillness you resist, is often the first sign that your inner life is calling for attention. It is a sacred pause, a necessary retreat, and a protective mechanism designed to recalibrate you when life no longer aligns with your inner truth. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time you allowed yourself to stop without guilt? When did you last let your body and mind rest simply because they needed it? The answer may surprise you. Most of us are conditioned to ignore these signals, to push forward despite fatigue, to interpret stillness as failure. But Jung understood that true psychic health depends on listening to these pauses, on treating them not as obstacles, but as teachers. Jung identified several ways in which the unconscious communicates this need for stillness, ways that are often mistaken for laziness or apathy. The first is misalignment fatigue. You may find that the obligations you once accepted with energy now feel hollow and draining. Meetings, routines, social engagements, these no longer stimulate or inspire you. Your psyche recognizes that your outer life no longer reflects your inner reality. In such moments, what appears as lethargy is actually a form of honesty. Your unconscious refuses to invest energy in a life that is false or disconnected from your true self. The second form is grief left unprocessed. Often, the heaviness you feel is not about the present moment. It is the echo of losses never fully acknowledged, a relationship that ended, a dream that dissolved, a chapter of life that closed without ceremony. Jung recognized that unprocessed grief devours psychic energy. Until it is recognized, honored, and integrated, your vitality will be withheld. Your soul will pause your life as if holding a candlelight vigil within you, demanding reflection, mourning, and acknowledgement before movement can resume. The third form is emotional overload. In our modern world, we absorb far more than we can process. Every interaction, every news story, every image on social media seeps into our consciousness. Sensitive individuals, Jung suggested, are like sponges, soaking up the emotional currents around them. Fatigue, in this case, is a signal from the psyche to step back, to rest, to recalibrate. Neuroscience supports this intuition. The nervous system requires periods of quiet to rebalance neurotransmitters, normalize cortisol, and restore coherence. Stillness is not nothing. It is active recalibration at the deepest levels of your being. The fourth is the transitional pause. Change is never immediate. Between who you were and who you are becoming lies a liminal space, a threshold where the old self dissolves, but the new self has not yet formed. Jung often described this as the in-between, the space where transformation incubates. Heroes in myth always vanish into darkness before returning renewed. Your fatigue, your retreat, your sense of being stuck may not be a problem at all. It may be your descent into this hidden workshop of the self, the cocoon in which your next stage is quietly developing. The fifth form is suppressed creativity. Jung understood creative energy as a vital force of the psyche. When it is blocked or unexpressed, it turns inward, fermenting into apathy, anxiety, or depression. Your sense of heaviness, your listlessness, your inability to summon interest in routine tasks may be your soul saying, "I am not being fed. My energy is wasted." Redirect it toward creation, toward what matters. Ignoring this signal does not diminish it. It only prolongs the pause until you confront it. Ask yourself this: what would happen if you stopped resisting the heaviness you feel? What insights might emerge if you allowed your body and soul to pause without judgment? Jung taught that every great transformation requires periods of stillness. Buddha meditated beneath the Bodhi tree. Newton contemplated under an apple tree, and Jung himself retreated to his lakeside tower in Bollingen, listening to the silent rhythms of his unconscious. Each of these moments of quiet produced insights that no amount of frantic effort could have generated. Could your own stillness be hiding a similar revelation, waiting patiently for your attention? Your unconscious does not communicate through words alone. It communicates through imagery, symbols, and feelings. Jung described this as the language of the soul. Dreams, intuitions, fleeting images, and even physical sensations are all attempts by the psyche to guide you toward truth. When you lie down, when you pause, when you resist the urge to force action, the unconscious begins to organize, integrate, and prepare. You may not feel it consciously, but beneath the surface, patterns form, insights coalesce, and energy is redirected toward transformation. Jung encouraged engagement with this inner language through active imagination. This practice does not require a formal ritual. It is simply the act of listening, observing, and responding to the images and feelings that arise from the unconscious. Write without censoring. Sketch without judging. Let your thoughts wander without restraint. Notice recurring motifs, phrases, or sensations. These are the compass points of your psyche, guiding you toward your authentic path. Consider this question: what are you defending yourself against by resisting stillness? What parts of your life no longer serve your growth? Which version of yourself is quietly waiting to emerge? The answers rarely come as rational conclusions. They arrive as imagery, emotion, or a subtle bodily awareness, a warmth in the chest, a sudden flash of color, a whisper of intuition. This is the dialogue between conscious self and unconscious depth. The conversation Jung believed was essential to individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole. When you allow yourself to rest consciously, you are not escaping life. You are participating in its deeper rhythm. Jung often compared the psyche to an ecosystem. Cycles of growth, decay, and renewal are natural and necessary. Transformation cannot be rushed. Energy must retreat, gestate, and reorganize before emergence. Just as alchemists allowed material to rest in darkness before turning it to gold, your soul must inhabit the pause before manifesting the next stage of your development. One day, without forcing it, you will awaken with clarity, renewed energy, and spontaneous curiosity. This is not magic. It is the natural product of the unconscious working quietly beneath the surface. Spring does not force its bloom, and neither should you. The pause is not failure. It is preparation. Consider the world we inhabit today. Modern life is a relentless machine, constantly urging motion, productivity, optimization, and efficiency. Every notification, every meeting, every to-do list item whispers, hurry, do more, perform. Jung observed that this linear model of existence is deeply incompatible with the human psyche, which grows through cycles, not constant acceleration. Our unconscious speaks in seasons, not schedules. It communicates in pauses, silences, and moments of inertia. And when we ignore these signals, we risk imbalance, exhaustion, and even disconnection from the self. Imagine, for a moment, the psyche as a vast river system. Surface currents represent conscious activity, what we can see, measure, and control. But beneath these currents lie deep waters, hidden streams that carry sediment, nutrients, and energy crucial to the river's ecosystem. This is the unconscious, working tirelessly even when we perceive stagnation. When you feel heavy, when you long to lie down and do nothing, it is as though your inner river is redistributing its energy, clearing blockages, preparing for a new course. Fighting the pause is like damming the river. You may appear productive, but the deeper work of life, the shaping of meaning, the preparation for transformation, is halted. Jung described this process of internal preparation as psychic incubation. During incubation, the unconscious reorganizes, digests experiences, integrates lessons, and sets the stage for transformation. The conscious mind might see stillness as inactivity, but beneath that surface, profound work is occurring. Your fatigue, your restlessness, your urge to retreat. All of these are part of a sacred dialogue between the conscious self and the depths of your inner world. Let us return to the notion of the in-between, the liminal space. This is not simply a pause in activity. It is a threshold where the old self dissolves and the new self has not yet fully emerged. It is often uncomfortable, even terrifying. Jung called this phase the nigredo, borrowing the alchemical term for the black stage in transformation, where the material is reduced, decomposed, and returned to its essential state before being reborn. In your life, nigredo may appear as fatigue, depression, confusion, or lack of direction. But these states are not enemies. They're the fertile ground of metamorphosis. Ask yourself, when your life is dissolving right now, what patterns, beliefs, or identities are quietly being dismantled beneath the surface? And more importantly, are you resisting this dissolution, or are you allowing it to do its work? Resistance often manifests as guilt, frustration, or the compulsion to fill every moment with activity. But Jung would urge a different approach, to honor the process, to let the old self fade naturally, and to trust that what is emerging will be more aligned with your true essence. Have you ever wondered why some of the greatest breakthroughs, discoveries, and artistic creations occur not through frantic effort, but through quiet reflection, solitude, and stillness? Newton observed the falling apple. Buddha meditated beneath the Bodhi tree. Jung himself retreated to Balingen, letting his unconscious speak in images, dreams, and symbols. What might your own unconscious reveal if you stop trying to force progress and simply allowed stillness to do its work? Could the solution to your most persistent struggles already be forming beneath the surface quietly while you resist? Even in mundane life, this principle applies. When your body longs to lie down, when your mind rebels against obligations that no longer resonate, pay attention. Jung taught that the body often senses what the conscious mind cannot. Fatigue, heaviness, and even mild anxiety can be signals that the life you are living is misaligned with your inner truth. This misalignment is not always catastrophic. It is simply information. Your soul is signaling. Do not push forward blindly. Align with me first, or your energy will be wasted. In Jungian psychology, this is intimately connected with the process of individuation, the lifelong work of becoming a fully realized, authentic self. Individuation is not a goal achieved through force or productivity. It is cultivated through attention to the unconscious, through reflection, through surrender to the rhythms of the inner world. Every pause, every moment of heaviness, every urge to lie down can be seen as part of this sacred work. Jung also emphasized the symbolic nature of the unconscious. Your fatigue, your inertia, your desire to retreat is rarely literal. It is symbolic. It may represent the dissolution of an identity that no longer serves you, the incubation of new creativity, or the need to mourn a loss that has been ignored. Recognizing the symbolic dimension of these experiences is crucial. The unconscious communicates through imagery, emotion, dreams, and intuition. When you engage with these signals consciously, through reflection, journaling, or simply allowing attention to rest inward, you participate in the active dialogue Jung called active imagination. Active imagination does not require a formal ritual. It is the simple, deliberate act of observing, reflecting, and responding to the images, sensations, and feelings that arise from the unconscious. You may write without censoring, draw without planning, or meditate without goal. The key is presence, allowing the inner world to speak without forcing interpretation. Over time, recurring motifs, symbols, or feelings will emerge, pointing the way toward transformation. Ask yourself, what is my unconscious trying to tell me when I feel drained, listless, or unable to act? What messages are hidden beneath the surface of fatigue and resistance? Could your soul be guiding you towards something essential, something you have been neglecting, simply because it cannot be rushed? Jung observed that creativity is often intimately connected with periods of rest. When your soul's creative energy is suppressed, it does not disappear. It turns inward, curdling into apathy or depression. The longing to lie down, the inertia you experience, can be seen as a signal that your energy is misaligned. This energy is demanding expression, and until it finds a meaningful outlet, it will manifest as fatigue, listlessness, or distraction. Consider the implications. The next time you feel heavy, resist the urge to scold yourself. Instead, ask, what part of me is waiting to emerge? Allow your inner world to answer. Jung understood that these pauses are not idle. They are preparatory, incubatory, and vital. The unconscious works continuously, forming insights and reorganizing the psyche, even when the conscious self is unaware. Another important point is that societal pressure often conflicts with the unconscious. We are told to push through, to meet deadlines, to perform, to keep moving. But the unconscious does not obey schedules or external demands. It operates in cycles of growth, decay, and renewal. Jung recognized that ignoring these cycles leads to imbalance, tension, and suffering. By listening to the unconscious, by honoring the pauses it requires, we align ourselves with a deeper, more authentic rhythm of life, one that respects both our psychological and spiritual needs. The process of listening to the unconscious is not passive. It requires courage. It requires a willingness to face discomfort, uncertainty, and the unknown. You may feel vulnerable, lost, or confused. These feelings are part of the process. Jung believed that this vulnerability is where transformation occurs. It is the black stage, the nigredo, the crucible in which the old self dissolves and the new self is forged. Here is a question to hold with you. What parts of yourself have you been ignoring in your rush to be productive? What wisdom lies hidden beneath the fatigue, waiting to emerge if only you would pause long enough to notice? How might your life be different if you honored the intelligence of your unconscious rather than trying to force progress with conscious effort alone? Even the body participates in this dialogue. Fatigue, heaviness, and inertia are often the first signals that your life has fallen out of alignment with your inner truth. The body knows before the mind, and when it resists activity, is speaking a language of integrity. The conscious ego may see this as laziness, but Jung taught us to interpret it differently, as honesty. The psyche refuses to invest energy in that which is false, misaligned, or unsustainable. This is why lying down can be an act of courage. It is not surrender. It is not weakness. It is the acknowledgement that your energy, attention, and psychic resources are finite and precious. By honoring the pause, by letting your unconscious work, you are participating in the ongoing creation of yourself, in the formation of your authentic path. We are nearing the threshold of transformation. Jung would say that the unconscious must be allowed to incubate in darkness, to pass through the nigredo, before the light of insight can emerge. Every period of fatigue, every moment of resistance, every urge to lie down is part of this sacred alchemy. You may feel lost, idle, or frustrated. Yet these states are the soil from which your next stage of growth will arise. The pause is not an interruption. It is a preparation. The stillness is not absence. It is presence. The heaviness is not burden. It is invitation. And the most radical act you can take is often to stop struggling, to stop performing, and to listen. To understand why your soul sometimes asks you to lie down, to rest, to stop striving, we must look at the alchemical framework that Jung often applied to the psyche. Jung drew a powerful analogy between the ancient art of alchemy and the process of psychological transformation. In alchemy, raw materials were first reduced to darkness, then purified in light, and finally transmuted into gold. Jung called these stages nigredo, albedo, and rubedo, and he observed that the psyche undergoes the same cycles. Nigredo, the black stage, is the descent into darkness. This is where fatigue, inertia, confusion, and even despair appear. It is the dissolution of old structures, identities, and assumptions. When you feel heavy, unwilling to move, uncertain of your path, you're likely in this stage. It is uncomfortable, even frightening, because it is a confrontation with the unknown aspects of yourself. Yet this darkness is necessary. Without it, no transformation can occur. It is in this shadow space that the unconscious organizes, integrates, and prepares your next emergence. Nigredo is not a failure. It is preparation. Jung described it as the psychic equivalent of soil being tilled before seeds can grow. Your apparent inactivity is, paradoxically, the most fertile activity possible. The unconscious is aligning your energy, dissolving what no longer serves you, and setting the stage for creation. Then comes albedo, the stage of purification and illumination. As the unconscious integrates insights from the nigredo, clarity begins to emerge. Patterns that were once obscured become visible. Emotional blocks soften. Grief is processed. Creativity begins to flow again. In your own life, this might look like subtle shifts, a new awareness of what matters, a renewed interest in passions, a sense of calm curiosity returning to your mind. This is the stage where the first shoots of the new self appear. Finally, rubido, the stage of integration and manifestation, is the return to conscious life transformed. Energy flows naturally, decisions are clearer, and your actions are aligned with the deeper currents of your inner world. Your soul's previous call to rest, to lie down, to pause, has been honored, and the transformation is now visible in the choices you make, the work you produce, and the way you inhabit your life. Have you noticed how rare it is in modern life to honor the black stage, the period of darkness before light? We are taught to push forward, to hide uncertainty, to keep moving no matter what. But Jung would ask, what wisdom are you ignoring by refusing to rest? Could the answers you seek already be forming in the shadows, waiting for you to stop struggling long enough to notice? Even today, amidst the noise of notifications, deadlines, and social pressures, the unconscious operates according to its own laws. Jung emphasized that psychic energy is finite. If you attempt to bypass rest, if you ignore the natural cycles of your inner world, your energy is misdirected. You may appear productive, but the deeper work of integration, insight, and growth is halted. True alignment requires patience, presence, and the courage to surrender to these inner rhythms. Let's consider a modern example. You may feel exhausted after days of meeting obligations that feel meaningless, after scrolling endlessly through social media, after absorbing the unrelenting stress of a hyper-connected world. Your body aches, your mind wanders, your motivation plummets. In Jungian terms, this is your psyche signaling that something fundamental must change. Perhaps your career is misaligned. Perhaps a relationship is draining your energy, or perhaps your own creative impulses have been suppressed. The desire to lie down is not laziness. It is a compass pointing toward authenticity. Jung also emphasized the importance of engaging with these moments consciously. This does not mean forcing insight or overanalyzing feelings. Instead, it means allowing presence, curiosity, and reflection. Journaling, sketching, or even contemplative observation can serve as bridges to the unconscious. The key is to notice patterns, images, and sensations without judgment. Over time, recurring motifs emerge. They are the guiding symbols of the psyche, pointing toward meaning, integration, and transformation. Ask yourself, what images, sensations, or recurring thoughts appear during your moments of fatigue? What does your body and mind whisper when you allow yourself to pause? Jung taught that these signals are the compass of the soul, and that by following them, you move closer to your authentic path. Even physical sensations are meaningful in this context. Fatigue, heaviness, and inertia are not merely biological. They are symbolic. Your body often senses misalignment before your conscious mind does. When you resist this signal, you may force productivity in the short term, but at the cost of psychic health. Jungian psychology teaches that the body and unconscious are in constant dialogue. By listening to these signals, you honor both your physical and psychological needs. The act of lying down, then, is not surrender. It is courage. It is acknowledgement of the sacred rhythms of your inner life. It is devotion to the process of transformation itself. And it is precisely through this surrender that energy, insight, and creativity are restored. Consider the paradox. The most powerful action you can take is often non-action. In resisting the call to rest, we resist the guidance of our deepest selves. By allowing stillness, by listening to the unconscious, we participate in the very process of becoming that society tells us to ignore. The unconscious communicates not just in rest, but in dreams, fleeting images, and intuition. Jung emphasized that paying attention to these subtle messages allows us to navigate life with greater wisdom. Dreams, symbols, and bodily sensations are the language of the psyche. If you take the time to engage with them, you discover guidance far more profound than any conscious plan or strategy. Even small daily practices can honor this guidance. Allowing yourself to pause, to reflect, to journal, to walk in silence, to breathe deeply without rushing, all signal to the unconscious that you are listening. And in listening, you create the conditions for integration, insight, and alignment. What if your fatigue, boredom, or listlessness is not a problem to be solved, but a teacher to be heard? Could it be that the very thing you resist, the heaviness, the stillness, is what your psyche has been asking for all along? Jung would argue yes. The unconscious always seeks alignment, and it often uses rest and reflection to achieve it. The process of transformation in Jungian terms is not linear. It is cyclical, layered, and often paradoxical. You may feel as though nothing is happening, even as profound shifts occur beneath the surface. Fatigue, inertia, and resistance are not signs of failure. They're the incubatory phase, where psychic energy is redistributed, patterns are integrated, and insight is generated. In this way, the desire to lie down all day is a sacred call. It is a moment to listen, to honor, and to align. When you allow yourself this pause, you participate in the alchemy of transformation. The blackness of nigredo gives way to the light of albedo, and finally to the manifestation of rabido, the renewed, aligned, and authentic self. So, the next time you feel too heavy to move, too tired to act, or too listless to engage, consider this. What if your soul is not asking you to retreat out of weakness, but out of wisdom? What truths, insights, or creative sparks are waiting beneath the surface, ready to emerge if only you listen? Your unconscious does not work on your schedule. It does not obey the demands of productivity. It operates on cycles, rhythms, and timing that are natural to the psyche. By honoring these cycles, you allow transformation to occur organically. By resisting, you block your own growth. By lying down, you participate in the deepest work of becoming who you are meant to be. When we honor the call to rest, we do more than pause. We enter into a sacred dialogue with ourselves. Jung emphasized that the unconscious communicates most clearly when the conscious mind is quiet. Stillness is not just a respite. It is a medium for insight, a fertile ground where new ideas, solutions, and creative impulses can germinate. The longing to lie down, to avoid the pressures of the world, is often misunderstood as laziness. Yet in Jungian psychology, it is nothing of the sort. It is the soul asserting its need for recalibration, for authenticity, for alignment. Ask yourself, how many times have you ignored this signal, pushing through exhaustion, forcing productivity, and sacrificing presence? Jung would say that each time you ignore your unconscious, you defer your own individuation. the process of becoming wholly yourself. This is not punishment. It is the natural consequence of resisting the rhythms of your inner life. The unconscious does not demand obedience. It requests attention, presence, and respect. Consider practical ways to engage with this inner dialogue. First, create space for stillness. You do not need elaborate rituals. You simply need to allow yourself moments where the mind is not preoccupied with tasks, plans, or expectations. Lie down, walk in silence, or sit quietly without distraction. Notice what arises: sensations, images, thoughts, fleeting memories. Write them down, sketch them, speak them aloud if it feels right. These are not trivial exercises. They are invitations to engage with the deeper layers of your psyche. Second, cultivate curiosity about your fatigue. Instead of asking, "Why am I lazy?" ask, "What is my soul asking me in this moment?" Observe patterns in your energy, your attention, and your desires. Jung believed that conscious reflection upon unconscious signals strengthens the dialogue between these layers, allowing meaning and insight to emerge naturally. The goal is not to eliminate fatigue, but to understand it, to treat it as a messenger rather than a burden. Third, honor the cyclical nature of energy. The psyche grows in rhythms, not straight lines. There are periods of activity, periods of rest, periods of incubation, and periods of emergence. Trying to force constant action is like trying to make the ocean stop its tides. Jung understood that the unconscious has its own timing, its own seasons. By resisting these rhythms, you create tension, anxiety, and imbalance. By yielding to them, you align with the natural pulse of your inner world. Here is a question to hold in your mind. What might your life look like if you began to trust the timing of your unconscious? What creative projects, insights, or personal transformations have been waiting quietly for your permission to emerge? Could the simple act of lying down, of pausing, be the catalyst for the next great stage of your life? Jung also emphasized the symbolic power of rest and stillness. Just as a seed must be buried in darkness to germinate, so too must parts of the self retreat to incubate. During these moments, you may feel vulnerability, disorientation, or emptiness. This is natural. The unconscious often works in paradox. The discomfort is part of the preparation, the heaviness is part of the alignment, and the pause is part of the breakthrough. By reframing your perception, you begin to see these states not as obstacles, but as invitations. Another tool Jung recommended was the observation of repeating symbols or images. Notice what surfaces when you are at rest. A color, a word, a shape, a sound. These fragments carry messages from the unconscious. When patterns recur, they act as guideposts, pointing toward insights or truths that your conscious mind has overlooked. The key is to follow them gently, without forcing interpretation. The psyche is teaching you in its own language, and your role is to be attentive, present, and curious. Consider how this translates to daily life. You may be in a job that drains you, a relationship that stifles you, or a routine that leaves your spirit numb. The desire to lie down is the first signal that realignment is needed. Jungian psychology teaches that energy wasted on misalignment cannot be used for growth. By honoring rest and attending to the messages of the unconscious, you redirect that energy toward authenticity, creativity, and personal transformation. Ask yourself, what part of me is waiting to be heard when I feel tired, uninspired, or heavy? What desires, insights, or creative impulses are being silenced by my rush to perform, to produce, to please? Could the simple act of lying down be the first step toward the life I was meant to live? Even scientific research now supports what Jung intuited decades ago. Neuroscience shows that during rest, the brain's default mode network integrates memory, emotion, and insight. While the conscious mind may seem idle, the unconscious is weaving meaning, making connections, and consolidating learning. Your desire to pause is not wasted. It is biologically and psychologically productive. Rest is not just recovery, it is creation. Think about it this way. Every major transformation in history, scientific, artistic, spiritual, has involved periods of stillness. Newton under the apple tree, Buddha beneath the Bodhi tree, Christ in the desert, Jung himself at Bollingen, listening to his inner world, observing dreams, and contemplating symbols. These moments were not idle. They were incubatory, sacred, and transformative. The lesson is clear. Stillness is not the enemy of progress. It is its origin. Now consider your own life. The next time you feel the urge to lie down, do not resist it. Do not scold yourself. Do not distract yourself with busy work or technology. Instead, ask, what is my unconscious trying to teach me in this moment? Allow yourself the space to listen. You may notice recurring images, insights, or feelings. You may sense shifts in your energy. You may even feel a subtle excitement or curiosity returning. This is the soul at work. This is transformation quietly unfolding. The act of conscious rest is a radical rebellion against the culture of busyness. It is a declaration that your inner life matters, that alignment matters, that authenticity matters. Jung called this the alchemy of transformation. The soul must pass through darkness to be reborn, and only by honoring this process can the psyche reach wholeness. So, the next time your body and mind insist on lying down, recognize it not as laziness but as wisdom. Your unconscious is guiding you, preparing you, protecting you from a life that no longer serves you. You are participating in the cycles of transformation, the sacred rhythm of growth, decay, and renewal. And here is the final thought. What emerges from this pause is not forced. It rises naturally, like spring breaking through winter, like dawn spilling over a dark forest, like the first spark of insight in the quiet of night. Your next step will come not through effort alone, but through listening, through presence, and through trust in your inner world. If you found yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about rest, if you felt the stirrings of curiosity in your soul, then you're ready for more. The journey does not end here. In fact, it has only just begun. There's another layer waiting for you, the deeper dialogue with the unconscious, the hidden archetypes shaping your decisions, the patterns that quietly determine your life. When you're ready, watch the next video. Listen more deeply, rest more intentionally, and let your soul teach you what the world cannot.